Welcome to Season 2 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Vol. I use he, him pronouns, and before we go any further than that, let me warn you, this show contains major spoilers for everything in Malevolent as of the date this episode is published. We're going to dissect the patron votes that drive the story week to week, so grab your scalpel and let's begin the autopsy. Since it seems to be just me tonight, I'll let you know I am controlling Arthur's stomach. Because that guy needs someone to help stomach what's going on. And I guess I'll roll right into the summary. So this is chapter 259. Charlie Dowd is alive. That's it. That's the episode.
So how many times have I said it? How many times has this come off as a joke to you people? You thought I was coping. You said I was delusional. You said, sure, queen. He's just in Spain without the S, queen, with those sad eyes, like you were pitying me. But all that matters about this episode is that I was right. I won. He's alive. He's waiting for us, just like I have been waiting for him. I have been loyal. My fealty to Charlie Dowd has withstood the test of time, and I stand on my hill bloody but unbowed and fucking rewarded. He's alive. He's waiting.
He's alive.
He's there.
He's alive. He's alive. You knew it all along.
I fucking called it. I knew it the whole fucking time.
Not delusional. Not delusional.
Not
Charlie
even
Dowd is
a little
alive.
bit.
Real.
Absolutely real. Anyway, I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled that it came true and my wildest dreams are real. And thank you.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of if it doesn't happen on screen, there's always a chance. So I am thrilled that proved to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I kept saying, if he wanted him dead, he'd have died on screen with the butcher, baby. Like, that's how you know the character's really out of commission. Until I see them on screen die, or hear them in Malevolent's case, it's not real. Didn't happen. And they might come back. And I was fucking right. I was right. I'm so happy I was right. Because I swear to God, I was like, people are going to think I'm a crazy, like, conspiracy theorist fan who is joking around. But, like, no, I really believe that he's not dead. Now, I don't know how relevant he'll be, but I know he's not dead.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see him on screen again, but that's okay. We know he's alive.
The closer we get to the next season, the more I start thinking about ways that could happen. So, anyway.
I want to just say, Autumn in the chat says Parker's death doesn't happen on screen. This is how Parker truthers can still win. Okay,
no,
all right.
Guys,
I'll throw the Parker truthers a bone.
No, Vol, you can't, because the whole story of Malevolent starts with his corpse. Like, he trips over his corpse in the first episode.
Maybe he was just sleeping.
Okay.
He's just meditating.
Sure. Would you like to give us our real chapter summary, Vol?
I would love to. I did actually write one. So, in this chapter, Arthur refuses to do Kane's bidding, and it gets swiftly thrown back in his face with an extra helping of threats and a resurrected Antoine. Arthur folds, but pleads with Kane not to make him do it while Antoine is alive. Kane shows mercy and kills Antoine again. Arthur does a little autopsy action. Finally, we've been waiting for it on the show, and Kane decides to sweeten the handoff with some prizes, including Charlie Dowd, who is alive, and also give Arthur a little EMDR as a treat. By pulling Arthur and John back into the past, he reveals that it was Lilith who Arthur's parents worshipped and died for, and who spared him as a boy. Then he asks Arthur to decide who he will choose to give the stone to, him or Lilith.
Very, very fun chapter, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It was a fucking blast, and it has been non-stop since then.
Yeah.
This has been the craziest vote I think I've seen since the last season finale.
Yeah, for sure. This has been the most wild few days. When did the chapter drop? Was it Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Monday.
The chapter dropped on Monday, and it's been crazy. It's been crazy.
It feels like it dropped 30 seconds ago.
It feels like it dropped 3 weeks ago, because I have been working in the coal mines like it's my full-time job. And people who, listen to the show know that I'm usually not super active in the coal mines. Like every now and then there'll be a
Yeah.
really exciting chapter that I have a strong feeling about. But
Right.
this week I have been insane.
You've been more active in there than I've ever seen you, and we also got quite a few people to come back who have gone astray for a little bit or taken a break, and that was really nice to see some old familiar faces. We've had some good times in the last few days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. You could tell how important the vote was because, poll chat would start to die down because we had all exhausted our arguments against each other all over again. And then someone new would come in and be like, hey, I don't usually comment in poll chat, but this is really important. And they'd give their arguments. Then we'd
Yeah.
do it all over again.
Yeah. And there were a lot of instances of you want to say that oh, we got off topic a lot, but there really weren't a lot of off topic conversations. It was just that everything you said led to a very long discussion.
Yes.
And it would spiral out a lot into vaguely related stuff. I don't know, it was very
Yeah.
interesting. But we had a lot of patron exclusive activity as far as what the records will show. Very monumental moments for this piece of art that we are all involved in, and it's been awesome. I mean, very tense, very passionate,
Very
and
passionate.
extremely well recorded in people's brains, if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
it's just been so memorable. There have been PSAs, there have been voice notes with songs, and people contacting customer service chatbots to ask their opinion on the vote. And what
The
else
the
were the voice
Levi's
things?
the Levi's support person or bot or whatever it was the real one and did come through. But a lot of them were
Yes.
like, I can't answer that.
Yeah. There were some other things. Graham ate paper again,
hmm
which happened in the coded vote.
Just to establish the reason that it was such a historic vote is because it stayed tied
Yeah.
the entire time. Not just
For
like 50-50,
hours.
but yeah, for hours. We've never had ties that have lasted this long, and we always, always, always try to avoid ties at all costs. And that's why there were so many memes and art and pet pictures and people trying to lure you onto their side. And we kept, going sort of 1 or 2% back and forth, but it was wild. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I've never seen that. I've also never heard of a lot of that. Even, I've only been here a year with you, but a little more than a year. But I think that this was by far some of the most active and creative
Yes, very creative.
activity. And I think something interesting was also that people pretty much almost immediately, within hours after the poll dropping, went to bribing,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
doesn't happen until usually the very end of a poll when people are
Yeah.
getting desperate. But
Yeah.
we talked this vote to death and then some. We really rehashed it so many times.
And the Kane voters were so stubborn, and the Lilith voters were so stubborn, and so it was just like immovable object meet just a brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like two bricks smashing against each other. Nobody was budging, and it was honestly a lot of fun when you were in the thick of it and going back and forth with people. And
Yeah.
it was never felt like, I mean, to me at least, it never felt like I was outnumbered to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. Because sometimes you can be alone in the polls on your side, and
Yeah.
there's 3 or 4 people who are actively chatting there that are against, quote unquote, against you. And so
Yeah.
it can feel really overwhelming. And that's kind of when I tend to step back, because when I feel like it's me against everybody else, that's not fun for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't really ever feel like that. I always felt like there was somebody who was going to come in and back me up. And that was really fun. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had so many really good debates with people. And even though everyone was really passionate and everyone was really tense about it being so tied up for so long, people were really respectful. And I noticed that, every so often people will be like, oh, no, that is a good point. It doesn't change my mind, but it's a good point. And I love to see that in poll chat, recognizing when someone's arguments are pretty solid, even if they don't agree with how you feel about the vote.
Yeah, and I also noticed that we were doing a lot of that thing where everybody gives their opinions and we all just throw out the first things in our minds, and then a few hours in or even a day in, we start to break down the realizations of where we're truly differing. You peel back the layers and you start to see, oh, you're voting this way because you have this personal experience, or because you value this particular quality more, or you have this vested interest in a specific character. Shockingly, I don't think anyone tried to sway me by telling me how their vote would help us get closer to Charlie, which
Mhm.
shocked me because that would
That
have
is
been like
shocking.
the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I just wanted to share some of the stats about like how
Yes.
monumental this vote was. So in the first day after the episode dropped, there were over 6,500 messages sent in poll
Holy
chat,
shit.
just in poll chat. And then in the
Wow.
first 2 days, 10,000 total messages. That's
Wow.
bonkers. And so looking at Kara's graph, it's just it's comical, honestly.
Yeah, so we broke a record and then we broke it again the next day, is pretty much what I'm hearing.
Well, the 10,000 was like total over two
That's
days.
nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts. It was like 6,500 on the first day, and then like 3,700 on the second day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
My God. What a time.
what a time! And there were 316 comments on the Patreon post.
That's fucking nuts.
The last time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, there's like 120. That's a lot. And then I looked tonight and it was like 316.
Oh my God. Well,
Bonkers.
somebody pointed out, I think it was Key Raven who said it out loud because it was something that I had been thinking of. But basically, like when you post on Patreon, nobody really knows what gets shown first. Some people think this is something I've looked into before this poll. Some say that it's the most liked post, some say that it's the most relevant according to like certain keywords on the page, and some say it is just the most recent post. But for what it's worth, it does seem to pay off to just comment what you're voting and make sure that stays as the most recent post, because
Yeah.
that does tend to be what can make or break some people's vote. If they click on comments and the first comment they see is Kane or Lilith, that might influence them.
Yeah. And I usually don't post comments on the Patreon. I usually just stick to the Discord. But I was so passionate about this vote. I think I left like 3 comments and I actually replied to a couple of Lilith voters. And I that's extreme. I hope that those people don't think I was being rude or anything.
Oh my gosh. No, I doubt it. We had such, and this is all to say, we had such strong force for tying, not intentionally, but like it just happened to work out that there were so many people divided in this specific vote that we have reached what I think is a very important milestone, which is like the end of ties. And
Yes.
that's new. So, for anybody who doesn't know, who might be listening in the future, basically, ties have always been seen as the worst possible outcome. There's a lot of lore behind that. We'll probably do a whole episode one day covering ties and historic ties and things like that, where we can talk more about it. But basically, Harlan has said it's strongly ill advised. There's some really good logic behind it representing the lack of ability to make a decision. And he goes more into it in the commentaries, which I really love. And you can find them. And I even typed up that part of the commentary because it was so meaningful to me. You can read all about that there and in other places. And there are plenty of examples of why ties are bad and when they've happened, why they've always been bad.
Yeah. But this one happened so organically. We finally got the Patreon vote counter thing working again, and so we were just watching individual votes roll in, and it just kept being even. It just kept being even. Occasionally a few people would flip, but it was wild watching the number just keep matching up. It was just insane.
And I think that when you don't have so basically the fact that ties were always to be avoided was something that people would really push to try and help people change their mind and pick a different side. And it
Yeah.
was something that you wanted to avoid. And so there would be like emergency flip teams where
Mhm.
like people would be tasked to say, okay, if, an hour before the poll, if we're still at 50-50, we're all going to gather together and see how many people we can get to change their vote to avoid a tie.
Yeah.
And, you'd have to be volunteer to be pinged and all of this stuff. And that's because we all knew that it was a bad thing. And we knew that there is a disconnect between like Patreon voters and Discord voters, which is to say, people who don't use or have the Discord and people who are just on Patreon. There's like a gap there. There's only so much communication you can have when you're not on the same platform. So the Discord voters, nobody wanted a tie, but we couldn't really reach the Patreon voters to explain all of this. And so before I even joined the Discord, it was just, everyone would agree, like, none of us want the worst possible outcome. We'd rather just, flip a coin and vote for whatever the outcome is rather than get a really, really bad thing because
Yeah.
the law of large numbers didn't work out. So all that being said, now without Harlan came in and made an announcement, and he said that's not really part of it anymore because the numbers are just way too big now. And
Yeah.
it worked really well when it was smaller and like there were 10 people voting. It served its purpose, right? And now he's just going to pick a choice if it ties. So there's not really any pressure to not tie anymore, which meant that everybody got to just stick to their guns, I think, or in this case, in some people's cases, stick to the original bribe. And we ended up being so 50-50 that it was the tie to end ties. So
Yeah.
we don't have to be
Yeah.
afraid of ties anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, Israel basically said that they were gonna miss. Oh, there it is. I'll miss the fear of ties, but also glad we didn't have that stress for this poll with how close it stayed until the very end. And yeah, I think that that was the right call. But still, just this was like a freak accident to the point that some people started getting paranoid that there was like voter manipulation going on. But it was just so close, and it was so many people. There's like no way. So with that in mind, what did you vote?
I voted for Kane because, of course, I did. What about you, volume control, not my best friend who I talk to all the time about Malevolent?
I also voted for Kane. I was wary of the stick. I thought that we learned our lesson in the last chapter because I was fully
Mhm.
on fuck you, I'm not going to do what you tell me last week. We know this. But this week, after Kane went ahead and made us do it anyway, but threatened to make it worse, I wanted to learn my lesson and not make that mistake again.
Yeah, I felt very similarly. I felt like denying him in any respect, even if it wasn't literal, was just sort of proving that we hadn't heard him the first time, for lack of a better way to phrase that. And I also felt like I don't really have any, I guess I just personally haven't felt enough of a draw toward Lilith, anything she's potentially offered, any allyship, any like I'm not really intrigued yet, which I know
Hmm.
sounds crazy because we've learned a lot so far. But by contrast, I've met Kane before. I know who
Hmm.
Kane is. I don't really know who Lilith is. And
The devil you know.
the devil you know.
I also felt very strongly that personally, narratively, it didn't make sense to keep the stone from Lilith more presently all this time, and then to, after realizing that Lilith had been involved in his parents' death or suicide and had spared him, that he would then respond to that by giving the stone to her. But I totally get it. Like, at the end of the day, Arthur could be like, fuck Kane specifically. Even though I now know this thing that may or may not be true, I'm still going to choose anyone but him. So it's not like it's out of character. I mean, the options are never out of character.
Yeah. And we were careful to kind of remind each other that while we all have preferences and opinions and ways that we want this to go, neither option was wrong. Both can be justified and be equally as satisfying. So there's not really a lose state in Malevolent. There's just a especially not now that we don't tie. There's not really a lose state in Malevolent. We kind of get what we want no matter what, because what we want is a good story. So
Yeah.
that's going to be, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But, and to people who were voting for Lilith, to their credit, were saying, like, we just told Lilith we wouldn't give her the stone, like, seconds ago. Why would we
Right.
just do it now because Kane showed up? Or, why would we suddenly agree to do, there's a lot of different things that you can say about, like, how we've been keeping things going for so long, similar to the talisman. Why keep it if you're not going to use it? That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I saw some really good arguments on those sides. We have a lot of messages detailing why people voted the way they voted, and some really good stuff. But before we get into that, can I
Yes.
play a message that has nothing to do with the vote?
Yes. Yeah, I think we should palate cleanse there, and then
Yes.
we'll get into the voice submissions, because people have said a lot of really lovely things, and but this is important.
Hello, my name is Graham. My pronouns are he, him, and I would like to discuss some potential options as to where Charlie Dowd might be. All Kane gives us to work with is that he's somewhere familiar, somewhere awfully close to home, and at the threshold. So our first option is 13 Mosby Avenue, which is Parker and Arthur's office, the same office that was previously Roland and Charlie's office. The second option is 58 Pelican Lane, specifically in the basement where the ritual to summon Shub occurred, and where the empty gateway still stands. Another option I've seen proposed is the Sleeping City, which is that city underneath the hotel in Leary that transported the boys to the Dreamlands in the first place. And another option in a similar vein is the Dreamlands Plateau, which is the plateau where they faced off with the King in Yellow and got sent back home. And then this next one is a little bit more of a reach, but there is a Lovecraft novel called The Lurker at the Threshold, which takes place in a fictional wood north of Arkham. And you know what is in the woods north of Arkham? That's right, the Stanchik Mansion. I've also seen people propose the Waylay and the Dark World, both of which I would say make Charlie's alive status a little bit dubious, but I understand the logic behind them. My current working theory is that he is in the basement of 58 Pelican Lane, but I really think any of these options are possible, or even a location we've never heard of yet. I just wanted to put some of the common theories I've heard tossed around here. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to say, yeah, I actually don't think he's in the Waylay or the Dark World, which means we may actually not get to see him, which makes me sad. But also, I just wanted to know he was alive. So
Yeah.
technically, I'd be okay with that.
I hope he's at 13 Mosby Avenue. I hope he's hanging out there and waiting for Arthur.
Me too. I really think that's, in my brain, that's the most likely thing. And I can't even really say more than that.
Also, please don't let him be in the Sleeping City. I don't want him to be there.
No, thank you. I also want to say that I love how far Graham will reach to get to Anna Stanchik.
I love it.
It's really good. Because that's what I would do for Charlie. So I see you and I respect you.
Right. Yeah, game sees game. I really appreciate that Graham pronounces her last name correctly. I almost didn't recognize who he meant for a second.
Yeah, I'm really bad at it, but I'm trying really hard.
Well, Hydrus is in the chat and just said very loudly, Yogg! And wasn't there some theory that the threshold was related to Yogg? I thought I saw you say that, and then I didn't follow up before in my notes. It says Yogg is the threshold. Interesting. Graham says, Lurker at the Threshold is about Yogg. The book is about Yogg. It's a name for him.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
I hope that's not the Threshold either. Charlie, get away from these eldritch entities.
The other thing I had mentioned was Charlie very specifically got shot in the throat, which means if we see him, maybe we may not hear him, which would make me infinitely depressed. But
you wound me.
Because that's like
you wound me, Queen.
About him, but like it's he got shot in the throat. Like that's it could happen. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. It's not what I want, but possible.
The trout population will be affected.
Yes, the trout population will feel this. Should we listen to another voice message?
Let's do it.
Hello, my name is Eli. I use they, he pronouns, and I'm voting Kane because I can't listen to or have the implication of everyone that we've been told to and actually do care about tortured, because we didn't play along with Kane. He's threatened us so much in the last 2 episodes, and it's not worth the risk. And it's also wouldn't feel as in character for Arthur, to me personally, because, like, he's reckless, but he's also smart. He knows when to play along with higher powers. We've seen this with the Butcher, the cops, with Kane in Intermezzo. We agreed to get him the stone, and I feel like that would also not be very Arthur-like to go back on that. So what is stopping Kane from just pulling everyone from every other universe that we care about and get them right in front of us? Because we just told him to fuck off last episode, so, like, he's not gonna be too forgiving to us telling him to fuck off again.
Thank you so much, Eli, for your submission.
You outlined some of my points that I kept bringing up to Lilith voters was, yeah, Kane may not actually torture any of Arthur's loved ones, but it's not worth the risk. And it doesn't seem like this situation, for me personally, doesn't seem like a situation in which Arthur would risk any harm to any of his loved ones.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the stick is a scary thing that we haven't really had to deal with, and we know is definitely possible. I know there was some back and forth about what that would look like for us in an audio medium and how that would be played out. And there's something else that came up, which I'm glad that this is being touched on organically. People voting, we've talked here before about voting based on vibes and how that's totally fine. It's just not something you can bring to a debate because there's nothing to debate about.
Right.
That's kind of the same thing with voting based on personal triggers, because I know some people have, like, really hard lines about things like child death or animal
Right.
abuse or things
Yeah.
like that. And they're like, I legitimately couldn't listen to Malevolent anymore if this outcome won and we had to listen to XYZ. And
Right.
that's just a personal thing for me. And totally, absolutely get it. But that's also not something you could technically bring to an argument if you're going to have a discussion about the vote. That's totally the way you can vote. You're entitled to it and to saying that. But if you want to make it like where you're talking to people and going back and forth, it's not something you can have a debate about. So definitely, I think that the idea of what's on the table if Kane is upset was something that deterred people for many, many reasons.
Right. But that's not the vote. The vote is Kane or Lilith. And I think if the vote had been more specifically, if it had been more specifically around that, like, yes, Kane has threatened Arthur very recently. He loves to threaten Arthur. It's one of his favorite hobbies. But he also, in this chapter, said that he, like, was gonna put down the stick because Arthur, was asking him. Kane was offering him to give him everything to bring all these people back, and he was offering to bring all these people back. And Arthur asks, "Well, what's the stick?" And Kane's like, maybe I'll put the stick down, and maybe I don't want to be that kind of being anymore." And so it's interesting.
But we know that that's not. I mean, I think from the very inception of Kane as an idea, everybody knew this guy isn't going to give you what he promises, and even the things that you do for him aren't going to work out. I mean, we've seen over and over again now that Kane doesn't play fair. He doesn't have to. So I don't think Arthur was ever under the impression that Kane was going to give him anything. I think it was just in service of not suffering that punishment. And Kane isn't stupid. He knows that. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of doubling back on his words, even though we all knew better, and so did he. And I think that was part of the joke. I don't know. We'll see. I just want to say that I totally forgive people for thinking like voting for Lilith was equivalent to saying that you don't care if Cain tortures Arthur's loved ones. Even though that's not exactly the vote, it's still something you could infer.
Yeah. And, some people, a lot of Lilith voters, and a lot of people in general, kind of, leaned into, well, I don't think that Harlan would do that. And I will just say that in other pieces of content that Harlan Guthrie has created, he has put, children in distress, however briefly, very briefly. And so I don't think it's going to be graphic. Like, I don't think Harlan wants to put a graphic torture scene in his podcast. So I don't think it would be that, but still, even if it happened off screen or even if it happened in a different way, like the effect that would have on Arthur was something that I was concerned about.
Yeah, and I also know that as a creator, if somebody said to me, "Oh, she would never write that. She's not really going to do that." That would just intensify my desire to do that.
Yeah.
Not in a mean way, but like I don't want you to limit me on what you think I can and can't do. Like that would immediately make me feel pushed down. And so for me, the perspective of, oh, he wouldn't do that made me very much like, well,
don't test him.
Yeah. Are you going to really push that?
Yeah.
So, and of course, it's very hard for me to think of anything that has come out of Malevolent or anything that Harlan's made that I didn't really enjoy for the art that it is, but
yeah,
it's still not something that I want to have happen to Arthur. So
yeah,
I'm going to vote that way.
And I have to say, it's very telling of the Malevolent fandom that Fish said, so if Cain kills a toddler, it's going to be really quick. And Luna Maria responds, faster than Arthur killed her. Like, very nice. So, when that kind of dark humor is so commonplace in the fandom, yeah, anything could happen.
Should we listen to our next message?
Let's listen to the next one.
Hey, it's Autumn again, she, her. Back again to gush about Cain in the vote, because wife. I'm a little sad we didn't get to hear him tear Antoine apart last episode, but hey, it looks as if he needs Arthur to retrieve the stone now, and we get some fun sounds and a brief Antoine revival for our troubles. So all in all, I'd say everything went just peachy, for me, specifically. This vote, though, of course it shall come as no surprise, I'm staying loyal to Cain, despite the very large part of myself that loves nothing more than to spit in the eye of God. Realistically speaking, though, why would Cain even give us a choice? Well, only if he knew he'd get what he wanted regardless, that's why. This has quite literally happened last chapter. We defied him, he made us open up Antoine anyway. It's important to remember that he said, nobody's coming out of this alive, so Arthur and John will die, which will possibly lead to Season 6 taking place in the Dark World or the Waylay. And we don't want to antagonise Cain because he may fuck us up as a punishment for giving the stone to Lilith, and leave us in a worse position to face the horrors. I saw someone mention he may cut off Arthur's hand, and now I'm playing with images of it being John's hand specifically, and Arthur being alone in a dark world without even the comfort of his left hand, where John used to be, and oh god. Anyways, back to the point, the stick. Sure, Cain may not go through as a carrot either way we swing the vote, but boy will he fucking use that stick, and it's our choice whether it's a stick or a whole ass tree. If we give Cain the stone, sure, Arthur dies, but he does regardless, read the earlier statement. We just get to choose if we drag down everyone he's ever known, including his own dead daughter, with him or not. Additionally, Cain can reach us in the Dark World, which is likely where we'll end up if he kills us. Lilith can't. Giving the stone to Lilith to garner her favour or protection isn't going to be much help when we're out of her reach, and still well within Cain's, who is quite likely will be pissed at us. Anyway, these are my thoughts. Hope you have a good autopsy. Bye.
Thank you, Autumn. Such a delight.
Hello, Autumn? I just want to talk. What do you mean people have been talking about he's going to cut off John's hand? What? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I have never heard that at all.
You had to twist the knife. You had to twist the knife and mention him being alone in the dark world without John's hand to comfort him. I just want to talk, Autumn.
I want to say that really quick for the public listening to this later, we're actually recording Autopsy on a Thursday night instead of a Friday night because this is a long story, but scheduling wise, it just worked out that way. The poll dropped on Tuesday. Yeah,
Mhm.
Tuesday. And it's only Thursday and it is already closed. So we do already know the outcome of this vote, which I'm not going to say out loud until the end of the episode this time because I just feel like, I mean, we all already know it, but
Yeah.
I think it would seal the deal a little better if we
Yeah.
waited. But it's closed, and so listening to all these messages in retrospect already is really interesting.
Yeah, so many options for terrible, terrible things that can and may well happen.
Yeah. We have another message here, but this is a written message. So I am going to read this for you. This is from a friend who okay. So in poll culture, the art of bribery is not just okay, but kind of like normal.
Part of the culture. Yeah.
It's part of the culture. And when we say bribe, really what we mean is, hey, I'll draw you art of your favorite character if you vote for Kane, right? But here's the thing, I don't draw. I can't do anything really worth anything.
Oh my gosh, Queen, don't say it like that. You can't give typical bribes. You don't have the skills for typical bribes.
I don't
Give
have
yourself some
like
credit.
I don't have like I'm not like I don't have anything to give people that's worth anything. So
Oh, your Canva edits though. The chat is saying your Canva edits are to die for. They are very good.
anyway, I bribed somebody by saying, if you vote for Kane, I will do something special for you on Autopsy. And I wanted to so I made absolutely sure that this message got in here, and I wanted to read it in its entirety because it deserves it, but also because I have a debt.
You have debt to pay.
The piper has come. Okay. So this is from Moth. If it wasn't obvious, I'm voting Kane. I started off with Lilith for maybe less than a day, but I switched after reading people's messages, especially Queen's. All of the other Patreon subscribers are so much better at analyzing these polls than I am, so it's nice to read everyone else's thoughts about them. Honestly, it's surprising I haven't listened to Autopsy before. Aw. On to my main thoughts. Kane threatening everyone Arthur's ever loved. Yeah, that's awful. But when he directly mentioned Faroe, told Arthur he would have him dig through Faroe's innards first, that got me bad. Earlier in poll chat, while I was writing this message, the topic of how Faroe's revival and then death would be handled came up. A huge point was made that Kane is, well, Kane. He's threatened to have everyone Arthur's ever loved mutilated. Threatening his daughter, who was a young child when she died, is horrifying to think about, especially when this is a podcast, which is audio. Nobody wants to hear a child die like that. And even though I know nothing crazy relating to Faroe is likely to happen, because I don't believe Harlan is like that, I still very much don't like the implication that anything awful could happen to her again. This may sound like a stretch, but as a child of neglect, I really feel for her, and the thought of her being brought back to life just to be mutilated by Kane is not a very pleasant thought. And yes, I know nobody would want for that for a little literal child, but for me it feels more deep in my soul. Thank you, Moth, for submitting. I really do appreciate it. And I think that people may be afraid to touch on that kind of stuff, but it's important. I mean, it's how you feel. And I think a lot of people get really nervous about that stick. You know, even if you're not Arthur, it doesn't take a lot to scare you about that outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that some of the Lilith voters were like, oh, well, you know, Kane's not really going to give Arthur all the things that he promised him. And I'm like, I know. I fully am aware that the likelihood of him actually bringing Furrow back feels like bottom of the barrel. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But avoiding the stick was sort of my main focus, one of my main arguments.
Yeah. I think the stick argument in general was just really compelling to a lot of people. Fear is very powerful.
Fear is a good motivator.
It sure fucking is.
And there's not a whole lot that Arthur is afraid of, but he does have a very obvious fear. It's an easy one. It's an easy one to get him at.
Right. Yeah. Should we listen to another?
Let's do. This is a longer one, but I think we'll just play it in full.
Okay.
Hi friends, this is Sardothien, real name is Lindsay, and my pronouns are she, her. I had a long thought on this week's poll that I posted to the Slow Poll channel on Discord and thought I should submit it here too since I'm still on the fence about who I'm voting for, though I am leaning towards and currently choosing Kane, and here's part of my reasoning for why I'm choosing Kane. I've seen some arguments that Kane getting the stone is essentially inevitable at this point, and we should choose to give it to Lilith in spite of this because she may prove to be an ally to Jon and Arthur in the fight against Kane by helping them either get the stone back and or prevent him from using it in the future. But how sure are we that Lilith wouldn't still be a potential ally should we choose Kane? With the information he just revealed about Lilith's involvement in the death of Arthur's parents, regardless of how truthful he was, perhaps Jon and Arthur could use that information as leverage later on. From what we have seen from her so far, Lilith appears to have some level of humanity underlying her behavior, misguided, superficial, and fickle as that humanity is or may be. But we do know that she cares for Arthur on some level. And that's not to say that she cares for him affectionately as Jon does, or that she is invested in his actual well-being, but more so that she is invested in and dependent on his actions. I can't remember who, but I believe another patron compared her to season 1 Jon and how he quote-unquote cared for Arthur, especially in the first half of that season. I wonder if it's possible for Jon and Arthur to play on her interest and the odd and somewhat detached sense of kinship or loyalty she feels towards Arthur later on. From my understanding, Lilith is still within the Hand's circle of influence, and the Hand and or Kane has frozen her. Regardless, from what we've seen from the Hand before when Arthur used it on the road to the castle, and when Kane froze everyone in the Order of the Fallen Star, Lilith can still hear Kane and Arthur's conversation. While she is looking at Arthur in anger after this reveal, I'm not sure that Arthur is the actual object of that anger. I think it's Kane that's the object of that anger, essentially for giving Arthur a loaded gun, telling him Lilith is solely responsible for the way his entire life unfolded, and putting a bullseye target on her, and also because Kane framed what happened to his parents in a very particular and emotionally charged manner while giving her zero opportunity to intervene. Even if she wasn't transported with Jon and Arthur and or couldn't see or hear what Kane showed and how he showed it, she must have known or had some vague idea of what Kane was going to tell them. Kane is desperate for Arthur to freely offer him the stone, as this seems to be the only way he can get it. So how does he try to make this offering a guarantee? He plays on Arthur's deep-seated loathing for cults, shows Lilith only in the wake of his parents passing without any mention of how she killed them, and then throws a question of choice at him for who he wants to give the stone to, all in less than a minute. Kane appears to be hoping that, in his rage and heartbreak, Arthur will choose him out of sheer blindness. I think he needs Arthur numb and single-minded, and his actions are certainly setting Arthur up to be just that and to have this instinctual hate and disgust for Lilith. Part of me thinks that this is what makes Lilith angry, more so than the prospect of Kane getting the stone. Arthur by no means liked her before all of this in any of her forms that we met, but I don't think he ever hated her like he is primed to now. And how could she make her favorite not viscerally hate her again? Maybe by allying with Arthur in the aftermath, should she still be alive after all this. I mean, Kane hasn't killed her yet. If she is alive after all this goes down, I think Kane may have inadvertently given Arthur a rare opportunity here. The enemy of my enemy may not be my friend, but they could be a partner in arms. Now, I could be wrong in thinking that Arthur isn't the intended target of her anger in this chapter. He absolutely could be, since, from Lilith's perspective, he is far more likely to give the stone to Kane now that he has put her in this light. She was looking at Arthur with a sense of pleading prior to the reveal, but is only now looking at him in anger, which could be her trying to tell him, don't you dare give that stone to Kane. But I kind of just find the timing of her anger a little bit odd. If she was going to be angry with Arthur in this chapter, wouldn't she have gotten angry when he complied with Kane's demands and physically gotten his hands on the stone, since that's exactly what she was trying to get him to do in the last chapters? He didn't comply with her after all the threats and manipulations she made, but he did for Kane's threats. Would that not have made her angry too? I just think that Kane, while I definitely do not want to do anything to appease that man, I think that right now he's the better option, especially if the reasoning behind choosing Lilith is to gain her as an ally. It seems that we might still have that possibility with choosing Cain. Would love to hear y'all's thoughts.
Sardothien, thank you so much. That was your first submission, and right now this is your first live autopsy. Welcome. That was so phenomenally written and spoken, and you have a great voice. Thank you so much.
And I'm really glad that you touched on some of those points about Lilith and that you sent in such a Lilith-focused message, because I think that a lot of us were so focused on Stick that we sort of had our considerations about Lilith went by the wayside. And you mentioned that, she is still trapped by the hand of malevolence, and the very existence of the hand of malevolence speaks to how powerful she may be.
Yeah.
If Cain has to freeze her and silence her, I will admit that, I kept saying during the poll chat that I didn't like Lilith's odds against Cain if it came to fighting each other or trying to destroy one another. But I gotta say, it is a really good point that Cain, as powerful as he is, still has to shackle her and imprison her to keep her from interfering or destroying him or whatever.
Yeah, and I also think that it's interesting. People were bringing up Lilith versus Cain a lot in the early few fucking minutes of poll chat. It didn't come up again for a while, but Yorick specifically told us, I believe Yorick specifically said they're matched in power. Lilith is only his daughter in the pantheon sense, not in
Right.
the inferior sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's interesting how Cain was so afraid of her, obviously, and in such a hurry to find any way possible to incapacitate her.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that is a huge red flag. That definitely means he's not the only one with, how do I say this? He's not the only one with control and power here. He's just the
Right.
one that is faster, pretty much.
Not only does he feel the need to incapacitate her, but also to manipulate Arthur into being even more upset with her and to believe that she has been manipulating him or whatever his whole life. And, a lot of people pointed out, a lot of Lilith voters pointed out, you don't think that what Cain said is true, do you? And, you can't believe, he must be lying. He's manipulating Arthur right now. And I'm like, yes, I do, but that didn't sway me towards Lilith's side, because I don't know what kind of allegiance or allyship that they could have together, and I'm super curious to know if we gave the stone, if we say we want to give the stone to Lilith, I do wonder A, what she's going to do with it, and B, if that means that we have confirmed some kind of alliance with her and she will want to, I guess Arthur's already her favorite, so she probably does want to protect him.
Her favorite insignificant.
Yes.
I think it's also important to point out that Lilith's perception of Arthur is seemingly going to be so different and skewed because this is a god. This isn't Arthur may be special, but they're not even on the same playing field. And I think that it's interesting to consider what their relationship is going to be like going forward, because traditionally, and I'm not saying this is how Malevolent's going to go, but traditionally in things like this, where there's, somebody that is dubiously trustworthy, and it's do you invest in this new player or do you give in to the old evil guy? And it's usually very much regardless of what choice you make, it's usually fine with the enemy of your enemy, because you have to team up to beat him anyway. So I don't know if we had chosen Cain, if it really would have mattered to Lilith. I think Arthur is a device and probably little else. However, I will be interested to see in how she keeps playing a role going forward because of how involved she has been with Arthur for so long.
Yeah. Milk says Arthur is Lilith's Blorbo. But I was actually thinking that Arthur's a warlock now, right? Because Lilith is his patron, right?
Oh my god. Oh, somebody call Harlan. Arthur can't be a shitty rogue anymore. He's got to be a shitty warlock.
Yeah. There was one more thing that I wanted to mention that was part of early poll chat. People were convinced that if we picked Lilith to give the stone to, Kane would, want to torment Arthur and, he would get the stone anyways, but that it would give enough time for the Hand of Malevolence, like, timer, the candle to burn down,
Yeah.
for the timer to end, and that would give us an advantage with Lilith being freed, but I don't know. I don't know if there's anything in that. My counter argument is that Kane specifically had this made specifically for this moment. I don't think that the timer running out is going to play a big role, but I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, I also think that we have seen Malevolent do suspension of disbelief with things like timed artifacts and objects in the past, and I don't necessarily think that it's relevant anymore. I'm not going to say that for 100% certain because Malevolent always surprises you. I mean, who the
Yes.
fuck predicted that when he said it's in a chest, it would be in a man's chest, not fucking me. But I do think that like there was some effort to figure out like how long.
Oh yeah, Slate and Luna did actually predict that. Sorry.
Yes,
There were
obviously.
two people.
The two people who believed it. The thing is that like people were trying to calculate these exact timings and things, and they were really getting in the weeds last vote over what was happening like physically in the space. And even then I was like, that doesn't really fully matter. Like I just don't think
Right.
it's relevant to right now. My philosophy is Kane takes up so much of the narrative space. It's going to be about Kane. It's not about any of the other pieces on the field. He is in control right now, and you have to like be on his ride for his chapters.
But speaking of the person who spent a lot of time timing out the candles for the Hand of Malevolence, shall we play Rose's message?
Let's play Rose's message.
Autopsy. Rose is of envy here, she, her, and I'm on the Kane train for this one. I've never trusted Kane, not even once. I do not expect good things from him, nor do I expect good things from Lilith. I certainly don't expect him to keep his promises, his offerings of bringing back our dear Detective Null from whatever threshold he may be at, Oscar giving him arm back, even Antoine. I'm sure it's just one more way to prod Arthur into doing what he wants. I don't expect him to keep his promises, but his threats are certainly not empty. And he showed that last chapter. The deal is in play, and the stick is still very much so real. Arthur is tired. We know this, we've heard this. His comment about wishing he'd never opened John's book feels like a heavy admission, something he's been thinking about, something that's weighed on him probably since the beginning. Him saying this now, after Kane threatened to bring back Faro, is very telling. We are not going to win this. No one is getting out of this alive, as Kane has said. But we can mitigate some of the damage done. Some of the worst of the Malevolent has happened behind the scenes. Think of the pits, think of Faust. We did not know until well into season 3 what had happened, and we saw the effects that had on both Arthur and John. We can walk into the finale with an Arthur who gave the stone to Kane, who gave him what he wanted, what the deal was there for. Or we can walk in with an Arthur who denied him and saw his daughter tortured in front of him, or worse. Arthur has been through the ringer. We've seen him handle a lot, but Faro is always the breaking point. He doesn't deserve that, and denying Kane a second time certainly won't work in our favor.
Haunting, chilling, perfect, beautiful, amazing. Rose, how do you do this to me? You gave me shivers in your voice message. Is that not the coolest thing? That was so fucking cool. Thank you, Rose.
And that's Rose playing. Rose was playing while talking.
Outrageous.
They told me, isn't that awesome? Outrageous. Oh man, I my jaw was on the floor when I listened to that voice message the first time.
Just phenomenal, outstanding, outrageous. I love it.
And perfect. Rose mentioned something that I don't think have talked about yet this episode, when Arthur says that he regrets ever opening John's book.
I have to tell you that is the low point of Malevolent.
Yeah.
Over everything else, that hurt, I think, the most in this whole series. And it was the part of the episode where my stomach was hurting, like in a
Yeah.
bad way.
Yeah.
I just didn't want this to happen.
No.
And I thought, is Malevolent going to go where I can't follow? Am I going to have to stop doing this? Because that
No.
hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But I pushed through and it got better. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, and Rose also touches on something that became an increasing concern of mine about Arthur's sanity, whether you want to quantify it as like a literal like sanity score or just, narratively. We have been told for a long time that season 6 is going to be in the dark world, which is already going to be really tough, but I was concerned about how much damage to Arthur's sanity was going to happen before that. And I was really, trying to argue for giving Arthur the best shot at having as much sanity as possible before he and John end up in the dark world. And whatever torment or punishment Kane delivers in the next episode, I feel like his sanity is gonna be real bad. And I tried to argue and convince Lilith voters that if Arthur agrees, complies with Kane, that's also gonna do some sanity damage because he feels so much guilt and shame about giving in, about quote unquote giving up, even if it's in the benefit of, surviving to fight another day.
I gotta say, like, there's a lot of very passionate talk from a lot of very wonderful people about how, like, that we can't give up and this isn't the time to stop now and we have to try and all this, and how Arthur has always been this bloody but unbowed character, and how he has always been so resilient and determined. But the minute he spoke to John that way, I knew he was already done.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
to me, it was very much like there is no more room for get up and keep going. And this isn't about like a decision. This is something that, like, Arthur is already too broken to get back up. And I felt like it was a point for him where it's just a body over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Woof.
I have a really dark thought that came to me when I listened to the episode again today. Kane, so Arthur is like, it's just a body now. It's not Antoine, like, it's just a body.
Yeah.
And suddenly Faust's thoughts started creeping into my brain. And then Kane says, "Have you done this before, Artie?" And I was like, oh no. Oh no.
The gut punch, the absolute gut punch. Kane knowing everything they've been through. Just at any possible turn, like, he knew that it would be an insult to Arthur to say that he felt like the butcher was here. Like, he knows all of the buttons.
He can play Arthur like a goddamn fiddle.
Yeah. And that's what I think people are so scared of, because they know Kane is not to be fucked with.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for being afraid of that. I also think that it's important to note that the Q&A that we just had in Invictus Con, he had said that the theme was acceptance, right?
The theme for season 6, yeah.
And that setting things up felt like this is supposed to be the darkest night before the dawn. This is supposed to be the really, really bad thing that happens so that you can get the triumphant return that you want.
Yeah.
And for this to be the final vote of the chapter of the part was very fitting, I think.
And Mizra mentions John's response to Arthur saying he regretted ever opening his book. John's just being defeated, accepting it, and not getting angrily defensive will break me. And that was the other part, is like, it was heartbreaking for Arthur to say that, but it was also heartbreaking for John to not fly into a rage or even get upset. He just accepted it.
You know what? It was just like he said in the Q&A, I was just bouncing back to this. It was like, there are way other, like, bigger fish to fry. And it felt like John having to put that down so intentionally, like, okay, that was awful, but I don't even have time to be upset about it because we have a thing to do and it's so much more important. And I can't wait until I hear John's sad little voice ask Arthur about that later on in season 6, because it definitely will come up.
Oh, for sure. You know what? A lot of Lilith voters said that choosing to give the stone to Cain was giving up, and I hope that they're right. I hope that if we give Lilith the stone, I hope that is Arthur's like picking himself back up and never backing down and never giving up. I do hope that. Maybe it'll balance the sanity loss, maybe.
Should we listen to another message?
Yes, absolutely.
Hello there. This is Donna Maria, she, they pronouns. I come to you bloodied after a long week within the coal mines. As you can hear behind me, the carnage continues. The desire to break the tie, the birds, the owls, they come. But I'm here with a message of hope. And that message is, even if we end this, locked within 50-50, soldiers on both sides, pressed against one another, sweaty and bloody, and I believe we will make it out the other side. I ask you all to take my hand, and hope beyond hope. There will be an outcome. There will be peace. And that peace will come when we let them swallow that fucking stone, and it's gone forever. Thank you very much. Please let him eat the stone. Goodbye.
I don't know how many fucking theater kids we have, but there must be a lot of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Luna Maria.
Luna, that was next level. That was legendary. And you got it in at like the last minute too. I listened to it earlier and was like, oh my god, how do we have 2 produced voice messages?
Yeah, that was fucking highlights, because Luna was like, oh, I don't get off work till 5. It's 5:15, okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And she's like, okay, I did it. A few minutes late, but I did it. And I'm expecting like a 90-second normal little like comment. No, beautiful artisan craft work here.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like I mentioned at the top of the episode, I was in the coal mines like it was my full-time job this week, and it felt like a bloody battle, just wave after wave of, throwing your arguments back and forth. Yeah. No, Luna, you captured it perfectly. And also I do love the chaos vote for just eat the fucking stone.
You know what though? Like, I have to say, there is something about malevolent voters. There's a small but very prominent sect of them that really wants Arthur to eat things he shouldn't be eating, because this has happened before many times.
Yeah,
in particular, the one most prominent in my brain is swallowing the ring in the castle.
Yeah,
people really wanted that to happen. But I will also say that, like, I get that the logical conclusion is that they opened Antoine up and put the stone inside of him that way. But, like, technically, you could just say that dude swallowed it. I mean, maybe it blew him up from the inside and they had to put him back together. So maybe your blower bows do eat rocks. I don't know. Is that something you really want out of your podcast?
No, you know what I realized? Because Joe is actually in the chat tonight, and she was saying, eat it. And I realized it's been Joe the whole time. Joe is always meddling around in the server, popping in and talking about eating random objects. So I think the precedent was set by Joe.
She says, I am the chaos. Yeah, crawling chaos who? Move the fuck over, Cain. Speaking of really funny things, should we listen to another message, Paul?
Yes, please.
Hey, it's Fish, and I'm on hydrocodone right now after getting a back procedure, and I just want to say, let's not tie. Thanks, guys. He, him.
Thanks, Fish.
Oh.
Him at the end was really good and necessary.
Oh my god, this message had me cackling. I was laughing so hard. And I take little notes about everyone's voice messages because my brain is a sieve and I don't want to forget what you were talking about. And all I wrote for Fish's message is drugged prophet.
drugged prophet. Fish was having a different surgery at I think at a different finale of
Yes.
Malevolent. So Fish, I think you're gonna have to find another reason to get ripped into next year around this time. If you could plan that, great. Thank you, Fish. Appreciate you.
Thank you to everyone for submitting. We had so many voice submissions for this episode. We have to do it in 2 sessions.
We want to cover more of Lilith stuff. And by the way, it's not my fault it was cut up like that. Vol did that.
I did that. You can blame me.
Vol split it into Cain versus Lilith. And we'll be talking more about Lilith, and we'll talk a little bit more about like the poll and the numbers and how things settled out and shook out on Sunday. So if you're able to come back,
I will give you guys a little sneak peek about my notes for Sunday. I wrote all my notes and all they say is, "What's Lilith's deal?" So you have that to look forward to.
and like, I mean, we went over the most important part, which was that Charlie's fucking alive. Like that's really all that matters. Like what vote? Who cares? Charlie's alive. He's waiting. Like we're gonna see him again for absolute sure, because why would he be brought up if he wasn't about to be seen again?
Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. You can find everything official at linktree/Harlan Guthrie. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. And speaking of here, if you want to be part of the live vote chat I record each week, join the Invictus Patreon and connect your Discord account. We have our own private patrons-only autopsy channel. If you want to chat with me and maybe even some other folks you hear from on the show, you can also find a public autopsy channel from the Invictus Discord so you can hang out even if you're not a patron. While Malevolent Autopsy is my pride and joy, it wouldn't be ever improving without some key players. Thank you to Mizra, Nikki, and Vol Control for their work editing and assisting with production. They do so much for the show, and they do it all as volunteers, and I couldn't be more grateful. To submit a voice recording, have your message read aloud on the show, or find us on other platforms, visit linktree/Malevolent Autopsy.
I love that we are on an audio platform that allows for us to ask these probably mind-numbingly exciting questions to answer for these people with very specific and niche interests. And then we have to wait for them to type.